Some industries are more complex than the other. Simple versus complex. Today, I want to talk about when you're buying your first business and you're creating a acquisition platform, why it's very important to identify those industries that are a little bit more complex and those that are a little bit more simple. And let me just kind of clarify by what I mean by complex and simple. A complex industry is going to be something like, take aerospace engineering for example, or healthcare. Those are more complex because they rely on technology and innovation to happen, right, to actually move the needle with those. Now take simple. Let's say you have a tire shop or a farm, for instance, where crops are planted and then they are harvested. So it's a very, very straightforward system when you're looking at an industry that's simple and something that is complex, right, due to the systems and the processes that is involved in actually making that business, the simple one, work and the complex business work. So I just wanted to clarify that. Now, I would recommend you get into businesses or industries that are simple. The reason why is because starting out, you're not going to have enough knowledge unless you have that specific background in the industry that you're going into. Most people tend not to have that. So I would keep it very, very simple and look at, like we discussed in a previous video, look at service-based businesses. And those are essentially businesses that you need a service from, kind of a necessity, if you will, right? So I would look at kind of industries that are filled with a lot of mom and pops, meaning they have a small business owner. Well, they're operated by a small business owner and not a giant corporation or conglomerate or anything like that. So I would stay away from businesses that are really complex. Like I said, unless you have that background, you're a software engineer or a aerospace engineer, something like that, or you have anything that's very, very specialized and you need specific experience for. If you have that, then your odds of getting the capital that you need to actually buy your first business in that space or that industry is a little bit higher as opposed to someone who does not have that background. Again, what are some of the things that make a industry complex and what are some of the things that makes it simple? Technology and innovation. Complex industries, they often rely on cutting edge technology, like I mentioned before. For instance, tech, it's always evolving and stuff like that. It's never changing. If you're in tech, 1 year go by, I mean, that's kind of like 10 years in tech, 5-10 years, right? And it's always a lot of breakthroughs and advancements that's happening. Regulations and compliance. I know this well because I'm in healthcare myself, and we have to, sometimes consider if we're going to do a stock purchase or a asset purchase, just because it may be the type of company. It may have a lot of contracts that are involved with that company, and when you're doing a asset purchase and there are contracts involved, a lot of times you have to renew those contracts. They're non-transferable when you're dealing with an asset. So you have to reapply, and in my case, we deal with Medicare and something called an NPI number and a Medicare number, something we have to apply for and get. That is part of the credentialing process because you want to be able to bill under your company name. That is one of those things that's a little bit more complex, but we have to deal with regulations on the Medicare side. That's why we kind of tend a little bit, we lean closer to businesses that are cash-based with healthcare, anything that you pay out of pocket for, right? And then we have the opportunity to grow on the Medicare side. So regulations and compliances, you have to look at that. For another example, pharmaceuticals, that's very, very heavily regulated. So let's move to number 3, specialized knowledge. I mentioned this before. Some industries require highly specialized knowledge. Consider medical field, like myself. But there are certain businesses that it is highly specialized, but the owner themselves does not have to have that skill, right? It's not a requirement for the owner to have that specific skill. Like myself, I buy medical practices. Some practices, I do not have to have a doctor's medical license to acquire that business and run it as a owner. Now, some, that's a different story, kind of like dental. We stay away from dental because of that. And one way to bypass that is to actually give the one of your medical directors or advisors or someone on your team that have that specialty, give them equity in the company. That way it'll be able to, you can bypass that, or the owner, but they tend to not like to stay on board for that equity play. And then we have global supply chain. That's kind of funny because I'm creating a self-sustaining supply chain in healthcare to address the redundancies and kind of like the inefficiencies that are in the hospital system specifically, and drug delivery directly to patient. We're not interested in delivering anything else we're not interested in delivering medicine to hospitals or other doctors' offices. We want to address our patients as they're leaving, they're coming from seeing our doctor and leaving. That's where we want to address the patients. And there's a lot of redundancies in there, and that's one of the things that we want to eliminate with our supply chain. And that's going to require a lot of legwork and bringing a lot of components together. But that being said, it's something that we aim to kind of solve in the healthcare industry overall. And then we have number 5, risk and uncertainty. I mean, every industry there's risk and uncertainty, but there's a lot more risk, especially when COVID-19 happened. It showed us, what the government deemed to be essential or unessential or non-essential business, I should say, right? So we're able to kind of pay attention to these things a little bit closer in the case that coronavirus were to happen again, which it's kind of looking like that's what's going to happen in the landscape right now. But in the event something like that drastic were to happen, we kind of have a little bit of data to go off, as opposed to before it happened, we didn't really know, right? So you want to always keep in mind the risk and specifically the uncertainty that's involved in these industries. So guys, those were 5 points that I wanted to touch on what makes our industry simple and what makes it a little bit more complex, right? So if you like this video, you found value in the content, remember to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And if you want what I just discussed in a PDF format, right, you want to hold it in your hands or you want to be able to download it, go to ibuniversity.org/membership. All right, guys, see you next time.